It's a little bit of a weird situation where things are just not selling as quickly. Even though there's a demand, you've got buyers just extra cautious, and I think maybe that's the biggest reason for the slowdown. Every house can sell. Every house will sell. In this market, you've got to come in extra prepared.
Welcome to the Beyond Wealth podcast for the Birmingham market update of May. And to be honest, we had a crazy April. We were talking about this offline. We had a crazy April. May's kind of had a little bit of a shift, so I'm really excited to talk about it. But Minnie, why don't you introduce yourself? You're an agent here in Birmingham. You've come to some of our investor meetups, and I was like, I have to have you on to kind of show the stats for this month. So welcome.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate you inviting me. I'm excited to be here. So I've been in real estate. It's a total of 3 years. I did come from Miami, where I used to be a teacher. And when I first started selling, I had the, am I going to fail miserably at this? But I definitely was blessed. I've loved it. And maybe from the very first sale, I got a big interest on investments. And so a lot of what I do has to do with investment properties.
That's awesome.
So it's been fun.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we definitely, I know you're involved with the community. You're one of the great agents that I've, gotten to connect with. You know a lot of other agents like Rodrigo and stuff that I've got to work with before. And so I appreciate you taking the time to hang out on the podcast. So let's dive into May, because May definitely, April was great. I think my pocketbook showed that it was great. Like I had a lot of closings happen in April. But May has definitely shifted a little bit, and the stats kind of show it. So let's start out with listings. In 2023, we had 2,238, and in 2024, we had 2,539. So a 13.45% increase in listings, which is very interesting because April, we had a 15.72%. So we're looking at some very significant listings increases compared to what the market has shown before. Now, that said, historically, we're still in low supply, right? Which is interesting, but we're climbing, which is in inventory, which is a step in the right direction for inventory. Have you seen that in kind of your listings and your conversations in your areas?
I have. So what I'm noticing is that it's a little bit of a weird situation where things are just not selling as quickly. Even though there's a demand, you've got buyers just extra cautious. And I think maybe that's the biggest reason for the slowdown, because I feel that there are properties out there, but they're just not going as quickly because of all the thinking that's going on for buyers.
Well, and I think we're getting back to what is a normal market. I remember talking to Matthew Gregory. He's been flipping for over 30 years, and he would flip a house and expect it to be shown for 2 to 3 months before it sold. And we went through a market where it was the first weekend, and if it didn't happen the first weekend, you're like, scared, basically. And that's what 3% interest rates will do to you, So I agree, this listings coming, the elevated listings, but on the flip side, the sales are down, which we can talk about in a minute. But people who are listing don't realize they have to bring a premium product to the market.
That's right. No, that's right. And I've been blessed with my last several listings, but because I know what buyers are thinking and how they're being just extra particular about the quality of the home, I'm coming in with every detail prepared and thought of. Yeah. And it's helped. The last few have gone instantly, but it's taken a lot of thought before going active.
It's almost like, and I hate to say it because I'm not lazy and I'm not trying to make a mark on our industry, but you could really post a house and not have to do a ton and it would sell. And so I think a little bit on the agent side, there was that mentality that some of the ones who are not used to actually bringing excellence to the table, or just kind of got out of the patterns of like, I've got to do the laundry list of things to make this thing sell and do well in this market. Those are the agents who are not going to do well in the upcoming market, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I think
not like you, and me,
My biggest thing is that my clients make the most amount of money.
Yeah.
I mean, every house can sell. Every house will sell.
Yeah.
At the right price.
Correct.
Do you want to do that or do you want to maximize?
Yeah.
To maximize in this market, you've got to come in extra prepared.
It's funny because we talk about the maximization, and I don't disagree. I have a house now that I'm bringing to market here pretty soon. We're working through some of the repairs and different things needed. It's interesting because we're going to have a conversation. I haven't had it yet with the client, but we're going to have a conversation where they could probably put about 10 to 15 into it and really dial the property in. It previously was a rental, so it kind of has that post-rent ready things that could be fixed up. It really could use a full paint job on the interior. That said, it's not horrible. The house is relatively clean. The floors are good. The paint is not horrendous. But you could kind of take it to market as is, or you could sell it. And the only thing I think we're talking about, maybe if they did everything, they would maybe gain $5K of price point, because they're going to have to put 15 into it, and it's in a nicer area. Yeah. So is it worth it? Because I think what they would be doing is getting it under contract a lot faster, and that buyer would be more motivated to close that house, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But in a differential of money, they're probably not going to be making enough money to be worth the quote unquote hassle of all the extras.
For sure. And
so it's an interesting position to be in.
Maximizing, depending on the house you're selling, can be just like that. Pricing it where it makes sense and it going well, and it still being a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because I'm going to have to say, basically, we need to come in about 5% below market rate if you want to sell in its current condition.
Obviously, if they put the money into it to fix it up, they're at a loss. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just really analyzing each scenario.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. I love that. All right, let's talk about solds. So this is where the negatives come in, or the negative numbers. I don't know if it's a negative. 2023, 1,769 sales. 2024, 1,616, a negative 8.65%. So we have not had a negative in solds in quite a while. So that's pretty significant. And it's telling me the market is, like you said, demanding a premium product. And if you don't bring it, we're not going to buy it because I'm looking down the barrel of 7% in a house that is appreciated in addition to the 7%.
Right.
I think everybody's talking about, in the 80s it was 15%. Well, look at the house prices in the 80s.
People don't mention that often enough.
They don't. And so you're doing 7% on the house that maybe, 5 years ago was worth we'll say 180. Now people are saying, let's list it for 250. Well, it's hard to bite that bullet at 7% interest rate. Right.
And we keep hearing that the rates are going to go down, but they're not.
They haven't gone down yet.
Not yet. I think we all expected them to by now. Yeah. And I think we're all still expecting them to. Yeah. But I think that's what's making that little bit of a dip right now. Yeah. Personally, because it's affecting the buyers. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it comes down to
delaying them too.
Yeah, it's delaying them. Do you think some of it is the psychology of like, I don't want to make a mistake or miss out on the low rate, so I'm just going to hold. And that still is kind of sitting in the buyer's pool, if that makes sense.
For many, yes.
Yeah. I think so. It's just interesting to theorize. It's the human psychology of what we do, right? It's like rates are fact, but how does the rate affect the buyer? So, all right, let's do medium sales price, because average is kind of wonky. 286,000 in 2023, 285K in 2024. So we're a negative again of 0.66%. And so I think that's interesting because we have not seen, the medium sales price was at a positive last month at 0.4%. So we didn't see a huge appreciation. Now the average sales price does have a 4% appreciation, but the medium is typically a little bit more stable, and we're kind of holding to no appreciation right now in the market, which is interesting. So year over year, would you say you're seeing your comps not have much appreciation from a year ago?
Mine are showing increases. I mean, I know that the reports have come out, but that's like from last month to this month, right?
That's from last year to this year. So effectively, in a year's time, it's saying this. The overall stats are saying we have no appreciation. Now, per area, I think when we dive into the submarkets, it will show different. I guarantee you. But I think what's interesting is if you take all of the bad inventory and mark it up against the good, I think what's doing is it's coming to find a medium where there's no appreciation.
Yeah.
Versus, like you said, when you're taking a premium product to the market, you're staging it, it's making sure it's painted, the landscaping looks good. People are buying that, and they're saying, yes, it's worth more than it was a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing the homes I'm selling aren't ones that have closed last year. So I guess in 1 year, things have been slow, but I do think another year goes by, and although the increase will be smaller than what it was, during the lower rates, I do think it is going to continue to go up just a little bit more gradually because of the rates.
And when we dive into submarkets, I think we're going to see the areas that are appreciating and not appreciating. It'll be interesting. List to sales price is another negative, 99.81% in 2023 and 99.55% in 2024. So that's another indicator of the market slowing down and effectively people cutting their price point to get it sold. On the average, not everybody. You list with Minnie or you list with Todd Helzer.
It's not going to happen.
No, unless the buyer comes to you or the seller comes to you and says, hey, I want to list prefer above. And that's happened to me actually a couple times. Typically when I work with a client, I look at all my comps and I look at the market, I look at the condition of the property, and I kind of gauge. I say, hey, on the low end, if we list here, we're going to probably have a contract within a month. If we go high end, we'll probably sitting on the market for 2 to 3 months, and we may have to do some price reductions to get activity and eventually sell it. And they always, not always, sometimes some of my sellers will be like, okay, I want the high end price, but I want you to still sell it in a month. And it's like, it just does not work that way. Like oftentimes when people go outside or even push above my suggested list price, I'll do it. I'm like, you're the client, you're the customer, you're the boss. But more often than not, I'm doing price reductions pretty quickly because the market's just telling me that, this is the demand.
And the area matters a lot because I mean, I'll be sitting with a client and we're looking at comps, and some of them are almost a year old. And I mean, if it's almost a year old, I'll say, well, the highest comp is here. Mm-hmm. It's been a year.
Yeah.
I think there's growth, and I'll price it maybe a little higher depending on the quality of their home. And till now, that hasn't failed. The appraisal comes in stronger despite the fact that it becomes now the highest comp.
Right.
Because I do feel that there is appreciation, even if it's not recorded on a comp. Time for the surrounding areas will increase that value.
And Birmingham's so area specific with that, like you said. So.
But you have to really know the demand in the area to do that. Because in some areas, you really just have to go with the comps and that's it. But if there's nothing there, you can definitely know that there's growth because there's things. I mean, I'm talking maybe like a subdivision.
Have you noticed with subdivisions, even some subdivisions are more popular than other ones?
Absolutely.
And it's just like the smallest little tweak on the styling of the homes. It could be even the same builder, or sometimes it's not the same builder. And like
the desirability, it easily. I mean, the buyers will be like, oh, that one's good. And the one down the street, no, I want to stay away from those.
Yeah. It's not near the Publix as I'd like it to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so average days on market 2023 was 30. We're at 33. So it's a 10% increase. Not a crazy when you look at the numbers, and medium is from 7 to 8. So not significant, but definitely still longer days
We're
on
seeing
market.
it.
So that's the overall scope. And what I like is looking at the bigger scope of things, but then taking a dive into the submarkets. And so we may expand some of these submarkets, but I've kind of put in brackets of prices that are typically close together. So Mountain Brook, Vestavia, and Homewood, kind of those anchors in the center of town. Listings 2023 was 163. 2024 was 165. So we're looking at a market that's telling you there's 15%, but in these high demand areas, people aren't moving. It's a 1% increase in listings.
Yeah.
So it's just I remember when I moved to Homewood, how hard it was to get in. Like, it's just, you have to fight tooth and nail almost. And that was a while ago, even before crazy rates. Solds was 171, and in 2024 is 150, which I thought that was interesting. So there's not very much listings, and the demand is still pretty high. And let me look at so April's solds was up by almost 1%, and we're down 12% on solds in Mountain Brook. Why do you think that is?
Pricing with the rates.
Yeah, I probably agree.
Because people know what those values are. They want to hold on to them. And the buyers, although the house is worth it, they're just taking their time.
Yeah.
I think things are going to continue to sell. The buyers are just really working through the process before committing.
I think too, potentially, those are communities that are very transitional based on like school years. So that could be some of it. Like, everybody's kind of made their move, before the summer hits. That could be part of it. Because there's a lot of money in these areas, and interest rates don't affect them quite as much that I've seen. So I think sometimes when I see like such a significant crazy number like that, I like wait for a few months to be like, okay, this is a trend. Because that does seem like an anomaly that there's less sales. But I mean, let me look real quick.
I mean, but you've got
okay.
Markets like right around there too, Crestwood and Crestline. You can't. It's like the way what you went through in Homewood.
Yeah.
It is almost impossible to get under contract in those areas unless you're being extremely competitive, and they're right around there.
Yeah. Well, and also I looked in April's listings. Listings were down almost 5%. So, and I could dive. March's Mountain Brook listings were down almost 4% in March. So part of that solds could be just that there's so little inventory that year over year, there's just not enough inventory to justify 171 sales.
Yeah.
That's probably it. There's just not an inventory. So medium sales price, $580,000. In 2024, it's $632,000. So that's a 9% appreciation. So we're looking at a market that's telling us we're in the negative on appreciation. But Mountain Brook, Vestavia, Homewood, we're at 9%.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing increases.
Yeah.
I'm seeing increases.
And that goes back to what you're seeing. And that's why I think we talked this out, is because I could create a video, really quick snapshot. Here's the stats for the month, and it wouldn't tell you the whole story. It wouldn't tell you the story of our town and all the sub cities, in it. So know that if you're in Mountain Brook, Vestavia, or Homewood, you're looking at 9% of appreciation this last year, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of the surrounding areas to that too, because they're affected by being close.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed. All right, so let's move over to Pelham, Helena, and Alabaster. So listings was 170 in 2023. in 2024 is 185. So it's an 8.8% increase. So that's where we get, Mountain Brook has almost no listings, and you have a lot in Helena, Alabaster. And I think some of that's new construction. Are you familiar with if some of that new listings are new construction? I'm not as familiar with those areas.
Pelham and Alabaster?
Yeah.
I don't think there's that much new
Okay.
construction there.
Because last month, it was up 36% on listings.
Really?
And this month, it's almost 9%. So there's a lot coming online in those pockets.
And how is the sold with
So
that
the solds,
30%?
yeah, that's a great question. So solds was -8 last month, and solds this month is -3.3%. So definitely, but I mean, you're looking at, when you look at these percentages, it's 118 versus 114 houses. So,
Yeah.
The percentages is an indicator, but it's not like we're talking about, a crazy differential. It's four less houses. So medium sales price in Alabaster, Pelham, and Helena is $311 in 2023. And in 2024, it's $321. So that's a 3% increase, which is about relative to a good market, kind of the middle of the way.
Yeah,
so,
growing.
Yeah, it's growing. And then medium days on market, 5 to 7. So significant percentage increase, but really a couple more days on market, not crazy. I feel like that's a really strong pocket.
No, it is. I think Pelham and Alabaster are hot.
Yeah.
Particularly Pelham. I think it just always sells, and it always sells well.
Yeah.
Pretty easily.
It does. Alabaster, Thompson High School's in Alabaster, and that's been a very big driving force of a lot of athletics.
Big time.
And so I think that's helped Alabaster become more popular. What are some of the driving forces in Pelham that you're aware of? Why people are moving there and liking that area? Is it accessibility? Is it some of the retail that's moving there? Or?
I don't know. I think it's just the location. I think Pelham is just highly desired. I don't know what it is, but it's hot.
Yeah.
I find that it's very, very hot.
Yeah.
A good listing there will fly, and we'll have multiples today.
Okay. That's good to know. All right. Hoover Trustville. You're at the Hoover branch, so kind of your stomping grounds, right? So in 2023, we had 220 listings. In 2024, 243. So a 10% increase in listings. In solds, though, we're at 194 in 2023. 2024, 166. So a negative 14.43% of solds. So kind of the similar story we're seeing across the board in all of these areas is solds is just down. And rates, I think, are just making things... The prices are, I think, potentially we're going to start seeing a leveling or a decrease of some prices. And then the premium products, the houses that are flipped very well, will continue to appreciate. But the stuff that's subpar, you're going to have to reduce to sell it.
But do you think that the solds are down because they're taking longer to hit? Because I feel like anytime I'm in any neighborhood...
Yeah.
Okay, it might say for sale for 2 weeks. It still sells. I just feel like everything
I see what you're saying.
I feel like everything is continuing to sell. It's just going a little bit slower.
So are you basically like the theory? I'm trying to track with what you're saying. So we are seeing a market shift, obviously. And that market shift just means days on market is starting to increase. And there's a lag of this in-between time for stats to kind of pick back up and equalize.
I do think that. And so, because I don't see them closing. Maybe they're not closing as high as they were hoping for.
Yeah.
But they're not coming down to a point where it's not having appreciation in these areas like Hoover.
Yeah. No, yeah. That is true.
They're kind of coming to like a middle point. So I think the growth is starting to slow down a little. The length of time it takes is starting, and so I think maybe that's what's affecting the numbers to show like things are kind of like going down. But because I just don't see them going down, things are continuing to sell.
Yeah, and I will say too, when we see significant swings like this, I wait for 2 or 3 months of stats to come in, and that's why oftentimes I reference the previous. So going to solds, and this is where I'd say, oh, this is a huge shift. Let's see if it continues. In Hoover, they were up 9% in April.
Yeah.
So, which is a drastic, we're almost looking at a 25% differential there, which is kind of crazy. So I'm going to wait and see, on
I was
that.
just hoping that by now, because it's like school's out,
Yeah.
things really heat up, and I'm not seeing them as hot as I'd like to.
I agree. I have a flip in Hueytown. We were talking about it, and I'm going to tour. I always, on all my flips, like, I like to go see my competition. And, I bring an excellent product to the market, I think. And oftentimes when I walk other flips, I'm like, they did not do as good of a job.
Right.
No offense, but
Right.
oftentimes they don't. So, I will say excellence is in the details. But all that to say is I'll walk it, and I typically would expect there to be 3 to 4 flips out there. And I have 6 showings booked this afternoon to walk, and they're all flips. Now, some of them are contingent, so it'll be interesting to see the contingent ones versus the ones who aren't. But that was just an indicator. And I have a listing there too, and it has not moved. It hasn't been as aggressive. So I'm not scared about putting my flip on the market, but it tells me I got to really knock it out of the park. We're talking about staging it, and none of the other places are staged.
You're making me curious. I almost want to go and give you my opinion on it.
Yeah, let's go see it after this. Okay, so, all right. Okay, so medium, where were we at? We were talking about medium sales price?
Hoover Trustwell.
Yeah, Hoover Trustwell medium sales price. 2023 was $452,000. 2024 was $434,000. So that's a negative 3.84% appreciation. Keep going back, and this is why I do this episode and why I bring in people like you. Because the stats can say one thing, but actual, like, boots on the ground experience is telling you something totally different. And that's because of the type of agent you are and the type of clients you enlist and the products you're bringing to the market is telling you there is appreciation to be had, but you have to go all the way.
Absolutely. Because the more prepared you are and the more realistic you are with what you're selling, I mean, the quicker it's going to go and the smoother it's going to be.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm sure you're good at pulling comps and really talking them through, like, hey, everybody wants to push. And so many, I think, agents, for the fear of losing a client, won't have honest conversations with their clients. And I don't want to be that agent. I don't want to lie to you or say, sure, you can have the moon when I can't give you the moon. And so, going to a client saying, we're going to have to fix all this stuff. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to de-stage, and we're going to have to do all of these things. If we do what I tell you to do and what we work together to get accomplished, we're going to be great. But if we halfway do it, it's not going to be good.
That's
and the market tells you that.
I always give a range. I say, look, we're from the numbers, the black and white is this is the range from here to here.
Yeah.
But I really don't list, I don't give a price on the house really until the day before.
Yeah.
Once I've seen everything kind of come together, seen how much they're able to do, how much I was able to help them. And then, I just look at how I would feel as a buyer, because it's not always just the comps. And sometimes when I think this looks amazing, this feels really good, people are going to want this, I may even say, all right, let's stay either at the top of the top of the range I gave you, or sometimes if I'm really confident, I'll go a little over, and it hasn't failed me yet.
Yeah. Well, that's the intuitiveness that we bring to the table. Like, my background was in design work and doing art for years. That's why we have this podcast studio we're sitting in, because was in the creative space, and you can walk a property and there's this feel, like you said.
It's a feeling.
It's an intangible thing, because these are homes that people live in. And when you have that feng shui, that idea of like the flow of a home, some homes just feel better than others.
You're walking in with people all the time, and you're picking up on exactly how they react to properties.
100%.
So when you're not with your clients, but you're doing it alone, you know what they're going to be thinking. Either they're going to be wowed or they're going to be turned off. And you can kind of, predict that for your sellers each time. So
It's good. Well, I love, like I said, going back to this, and we'll keep cruising, but the medium sales price says there's negative appreciation. I think a lot of that is coming from people bringing subpar stuff to market and then having to drop the price accordingly because they just didn't do the stuff they should have done to the property to get the premium price. Now, if that's what they wanted to do and they don't want to put money or don't have the money to put into it, that's fine. But ultimately, that's kind of, I think that's what that story is telling me. And I've seen from experience, and you've seen as well.
I have, yeah.
So, medium days on market from 2 to 5, so a significant percentage increase, but definitely, Mountain Brook, I don't think we did medium. Mountain Brook's always funny to me. It's 3 days to 3 days. So it's like if it goes on list on market, if it's good, it's going to sell. All right, so last area, Adamsville, Center Point, and Roebuck. We had 2023 106, and in 2024 we have 130. So in those areas we have a 22.64% increase, which is significant.
Oh, great.
So lots of listings in those pockets. Solds was 113 in 2023. It is 76 sales in 2024. That is a 32.74% negative of sales.
Okay.
That's significant.
So listings up, sales down.
Listings significantly up, sales significantly down. Last month, solds were not down. They were positive 1%, and listings were up 1%. So that's a huge market shift. And when I see crazy numbers like that, I like to sit. I like I like to wait. There's definitely, I've been doing this for a good bit of time. I've been breaking down the markets. This month is a little crazy on just fluctuation of numbers. And so it tells me that something's happening, but I don't know 100% what. I see some indicators of some slowing. I've seen that in my own listings. But it's just good to keep a pulse on it, because I think those who listen to this episode and listen to, this regularly, I have found they're usually 2 or 3 months ahead of the curve of everybody realizing what's actually happening.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because maybe I'm just being optimistic. My experiences this past month were beyond excellent.
Right.
I mean, blessed, so grateful. But I cannot, tune out what I'm hearing when I do speak to other agents that things are weird. Things are weird. There's a slowdown. Things are just not selling. I have friends telling me, my house, can you get me a buyer for this house? It hasn't sold. I look at it, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually, you have it priced well. I'll keep you in mind.
It's just not
but
moving.
it's not moving. So I know it's happening. I haven't seen it for myself.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Knock on table. No, and that's why I think this is great, because I have seen that too, and then I've seen stuff move, but then also stuff not move, and I'm trying to talk to clients, and it's just so interesting to take the stats, then also take real life experiences and kind of blend them together and say, okay, so next month you'll be watching the episode and you'll be like, oh, this is good to know from what we did last time. And you'll start to see trends and stuff. And I think that's the goal, is to get people on the front end of what the market's doing.
For sure. You got to take what's happening and use it to communicate, to educate your buyers. I feel like that's also another thing. Buyers are so scared, but we have a job to do. And I mean, I ask them, what is it that's holding you back?
Yeah.
I want to get to, you can tell me exactly, like, don't see me as your realtor right now. Like, I've been through this myself. Are you nervous? Is it because you haven't bought something before? Like, I want to get to the root of that apprehension, because we're all going to save so much time by getting to the root of the problem, talking about it, finding a solution, thinking of options. And I think that also helps, because if you let these buyers just go with their worries and their fears and their concerns, they'll turn what could be a 2 to 3 month process into a 6. Just because they don't have somebody just, telling them, explaining to them, and showing them the benefit of why it's better to stop flip-flopping. So
that is so true. Like, walking buyers through those, some of those hiccups and shortening their timeline of getting to the purchase of a home.
It's not about pushing them. It's about this time of angst is so unnecessary, because it's not going to make a difference. If anything, there's risk in doing that too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they just need that communication.
Yeah.
It's
I had a friend who was working with a client for almost 3 years, which is crazy, I think, but a lot of it came to hesitation and some of their, parents talking in their ear of like, don't do it. The market's really high right now. And they missed all the great rates and all this kind of stuff. And they ended up getting home, which was great. But I think they, to a degree, could have, if they had mentally gotten over some of those hurdles, they could have seized other opportunities before that timeline. So, but everybody's story is different, and maybe they're in the perfect home now. So
right,
that's great.
and sometimes the right time is when it is. Sometimes that wait is for a good reason because things work out perfectly.
Yeah. All right. So medium sales price is in 2023 was 150, and in 2024 was 136. So that's a negative 9% drop, and listings is about 0.8%. Days on market is high. I mean, Center Point, Roebuck, Graysville, it's slowed down a lot. And I wouldn't call this a trend yet, but those are some significant shifts that it's good to know, So medium sales went from 19 to 23, which is a 20% difference. So, and given the indicator of medium sales price dropping, solds dropping, listings being increased, like that market, if I had a flip in that pocket, I would be concerned.
I mean, and I had a listing coming up that month, last month in that area, and I felt the same way. I mean, I anchored my people. I said, it can take a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Again, it went the same day, but I paid attention to this. Had I not been able to really explain to them that, hey, it may not be as quick, they may not have gone for it.
Yeah.
Because they needed to know exactly what the possibility was.
I agree. Well, this has been a mind-opening episode. That's not the word for it, but it's really interesting. The stats, like you said, I've been feeling a shift in the market just with sales and how contracts are moving, motivation of buyers, expectations of sellers, being a little bit misaligned. And the stats, when you really dive into it, it has some clear indicators of some market shifts. So it'll be interesting as we move forward. But I love, like I said, I appreciate your time coming on because, specifically when you're hearing some stats and then you're like, that hasn't been my case. I think a lot of it speaks to your excellence and the product you bring to the table, how you coach your clients, how you're realistic about comps. And so I think finding a good agent like yourself, like me, really will help people be successful even in a market that's shifting.
Absolutely. It's good to keep the numbers in mind. You want to be completely well informed, but I feel like you've got to stay positive and you just got to put your best foot forward because it does work out with that extra grit and it really does. So, I mean, that's what I'm seeing and I'm just going to stay positive even if the numbers aren't showing the growth I would like to see.
Well, I think it, to a degree too, can help you be a differentiator. Like when you bring excellence to your job, you're going to blow out the competition. That's just true for anything. And so even in a hard market, when you're excellent, you just win. So that's great. I appreciate the time. Time is our most valuable asset. And so for you to take time to come hang out amidst all your listings and moving around, helping clients.
I appreciate being here.
So anyway, this was great. Have a great week. All right.
Thank you, you too.